Hello and welcome to the 2024 Christmas special. My name's Nick Naylor. Sitting across from me is Jared Allen.
Is it the Christmas special or the game of the year?
It started as the Christmas special. I maybe called it Game of the Year a couples. Last time we had a Games of the Years, but then we also had the normal one. I don't know. It's all one and the same. It's the Game of the Year show.
Yeah, we're here. It's the end of the year. We're going to talk about the finest games, in our opinion, of 2024, which banging fucking year, man. Really, really hard to kind of come up with a list because I think what did we talk about 40 plus games on the podcast this year?
40 something games between the two of us. And a lot of those games we both played. I don't know, I want to say 70% of them we both touched. Yeah, it's a good list. It's a lot of, when I made it up, every year when I make it up, I'm like, God damn, we play a lot of games. Jesus Christ. And then I see my Steam year in review, and it's like the average person plays 3 games a year, and you played 48. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
Go me.
Yeah. Go us.
It's like, we're doing great. We're doing great.
Sure are, Nick.
But before we get into all that, before we get into the rules, I made you some treats.
Thanks. No, you didn't. I know that's a lie. But I appreciate it because it appears to be toffee, and your wife makes some fucking banging toffee.
It's fudge and toffee, and it's kind of a problem in the holidays. I'm glad it's only in the holidays. Otherwise, it would really be. It's just like crack. I can't not. And it's not like there's like 3 pieces in my house. It's a whole fucking container. And it's a problem. Next item of business. You have made a cocktail.
I sure have.
It's blood red.
Yep.
You brought your own glassware. It demanded this glass.
I don't know if it necessarily demands this glass, but traditionally it is drank in this glass. And I got a kit for Christmas.
Okay.
Well, not really for Christmas. I was just visiting my parents. And my parents live in Nevada, in Elko, Nevada, which don't Google it. It's a pretty irredeemable place. Hopefully nobody listens to the podcast from Elko, but if you do, you probably know. You're like, yeah, facts.
You're like, get me out of here.
Unless you're like a miner, then it's the place to be because you can make outrageous money because it's like lots of gold mines in the surrounding area.
I thought you were talking underage.
No.
It's like, well, why are the teens making so much money in Elko? What's going on? What's going on over there?
No, not minor. Yeah, that's a good joke. Yeah, if you're a minor in Elko, you have no opportunity, and it's like a pretty grim place. And we've seen a lot of that. Just like there's lots of crazy shit that happens out there, and so yeah. But my parents love it, and one of the kind of interesting things that makes Elko interesting, of the few that make it interesting, is a massively large population of Basque people. One of the largest populations in the world outside of the region. So lots of Basque immigrants, which is pretty great because they are pretty great people. And are you familiar with Basque?
No.
Okay, so it's like a border of Spain, I believe, or no, sorry. Yeah, Spain and France, I believe.
Okay.
And it's basically like their own autonomous zone. And they are very much, although they might be part of the country, like whatever country they're in, they very much have like their unique ethnic kind of background and culture. Sure. And because like back in the day in the United States, there was lots of immigration from these countries. Basque people came and settled in Nevada specifically and brought their culture with them. And so in Elko, Reno specifically, Reno is probably the biggest place for Basque people in the country. They set up businesses, restaurants in particular, and that is where this comes from. Okay. So this is what it's called, a pecan punch, as it's like French, like pecan. But everyone in like the bar calls it a pecan punch.
Pecan punch.
Mm-hmm. And it's an aperitif, so you're supposed to drink it before you have like a meal.
Mm-hmm.
And Basque people have there's a restaurant in Elko called the Star Hotel, which is like really there's a couple of restaurants that you want to go to that are good. Star Hotel is like heads and tails the best, and it's been there for like since the 1800s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of cool to go in there
Sure.
because it's just like an old timey saloon where they got a bar and you go and you have Basque food. And Basque like dining experience is very interesting. It's like a meal that you literally don't want to eat all day long. Like, don't eat anything. No breakfast, no lunch. Save it all for dinner because the amount of food that you are going to receive is going to be overwhelming. And so it's family style. So what they do is they sit you down with other people on these like long, almost they look like beer hall tables almost. And you like communally share all of the food, right?
Do you order?
You do. You order an entree, but then each day they're going to be making different like side dishes that are just brought to the table.
Got it.
And so it's a pretty cool experience, especially if you sit down with like people that are interesting, because like you're kind of like, it's the first time I did, I've done it quite a few times in Reno and now in Elko. It's kind of uncomfortable sometimes because it's like you're sitting next to these people and you don't know anything about them and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, strangers.
Yeah, but if you get sat next to some really cool people, it's a pretty fun thing. You share like all the side dishes, they come in like massive portions, and then you have your entree, right? And it's a pretty interesting kind of mix. They got like all sorts of different things, like wild variations and side dishes, right? Like one night you'll get like beans and pork, right, as a side dish. The last time I was there, like 2 weeks ago, I got spaghetti and meatballs. They just drop it off.
It's weird. Okay.
It is weird. So it's kind of like a mishmash of like all of these different things. But the food is great, and guaranteed, like when you're at this place or any Basque restaurant, you're gonna see everyone with one of these. They drink at least one or two before dinner.
And what is in this?
So it's this. So there is a liqueur called pecan that is no longer produced. And so now this other company called Torani Amor is kind of came in and filled the void for the Basque community in the United States. Apparently it's still produced, but you can't get it in the United States anymore, which is a big problem for like these local Basque people. They're like, what the fuck? Like, we can't get this shit. So this company in America started like emulating what it is. So basically it's an orange liqueur, French origin. And so you got some of that. Then you have grenadine, which is where the sweetness comes from. And then you have a float of brandy or cognac on top of it. And to be fair, I made them a little bit sweeter than they typically are, which is my fault. I should have went less on the grenadine. I personally don't like the way that they make them at the Star Hotel because it's just so like Amor forward or brandy forward. Yeah. So it's like really, really boozy, right? And you just get a lot of that, like not like nuanced flavors. It's just booze, like that burn of booze that you get from it. So I actually prefer this way, but I can understand it's a little bit sweeter this way.
I would not. I was gonna say I would not order this, but I would order it if I was at a Basque. If I was having Basque food, I would be like, "Well, sure, let's do the whole thing." Like, because I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just it's fine. Yeah. It is just fine. It's kind of fun.
I was telling you, I was like, I don't really like this cocktail, but
it's something to.
Nobody in my family drinks them, and so like, which is like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, if we're here and we're doing the thing. Yeah. And everybody does it. They have these glasses specifically. They have like a mug club at the Star, so people have their own glass that come there regularly to drink these. I'm like, if we're gonna do this, like I'm gonna do the full experience, right? So
I feel pretty strongly about all that. I mean, it's why I like when I travel like to Europe, I'm not. And there's American beer. It's like I'm fucking here to
Yeah.
drink American beer, even if I prefer IPAs that aren't here.
Right.
Like, come on. Like,
Yeah. So my family hates them, and then I always get them. And so my mom this year bought me this kit with the glasses and like
nice.
all of the ingredients that you need to make it. And apparently the liqueur, even though it's like this other producer is making this other stuff, it's still pretty hard to find. So like cool that
Oh,
I have a
interesting.
bottle of
Okay.
that. So yeah,
Nice.
I felt that it was appropriate for a
Absolutely.
game of the year, Nick.
Hey, we have this. We have other drinks. We got whiskey. We got to buckle in for a long show, presumably a long show. I don't know. Maybe we'll just knock these bubbies out in 20 minutes. But I think it's going to take some time because, and I think this is true. But I think that quantity wise, this is probably one of the best years that I can recall. Just with the sheer number of games that I look at, and I'm like, man, I played a lot of games I really like this year. It feels like a lot more than some of the previous years. Well, I don't know if that's totally accurate, but man, like a lot of these games, I feel like could be pretty high in some of the previous years' lists.
Yeah.
So you had thrown out like, well, let's do 10. And I think we'd expanded to 5 in the past. And then it's like, you know what? Why the fuck not? We can do 10.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried about it because I was like, man, I have some games I haven't finished. I don't know where I fall on that. And I think the overall disclaimer is that, you know, this list is kind of a picture in time because I have games that I know that if you gave me an extra 50 hours, they would potentially be higher on this list. But where I'm like, man, I only played it for 20 hours and I just don't want to put it any higher when I have these other ones that I clearly finished. So maybe we'll check in later because there are some other games that I still want to make some progress in next year to see where I follow. But this is a similar conversation that we had like with Baldur's Gate, right? Like Baldur's Gate didn't end up really high on I think either of our lists, but I was like, it should be. I know it fucking should be.
Yeah.
But I haven't put the time into it.
Yeah, definitely. This year I was fortunate enough to finish, I think except for like a couple of like multiplayer centric games that are on my list.
Sure.
I finished all the games on my list. So I feel pretty good about where my list is at. But like, look, we have lives. This is just a hobby podcast. So yeah, you know, maybe
sure.
we didn't finish the whole fucking thing, but I don't think that really matters. I think it's more like how you felt while you played the game. I don't know if you necessarily need to finish a game to have strong feelings on it and be like, oh, absolutely. Like, even though I only put 25 hours into it, this made me feel some type of way in 2024. So
might be weird if like your number one was a game that's like, I hope I finish it soon. But
sure.
You know, but so yeah, we got 10 games. And then the next hurdle we kind of had to go through was, how do we talk about 10 games? I don't know your list. You don't know my list. So when I bring up a game, my number 10 game is your number 2 game, it gets a little weird to talk about the 10 and then you could talk later about the 2. So we'll just throw the flag that say, hey, that's on my list later.
Yeah.
And then we'll not talk about it and we'll circle back. So I think that's the best way I can think of to try and navigate it.
Okay.
So
Yep.
Am I going to start?
Let me start because I saw your 10. So
we already read it.
Yeah. My number 10 game for 2024 is Tekken 8. Really, really solid fighting game. Obviously,
It's on my list.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Where is it at?
Higher.
Okay. Well, we'll skip it then,
Yep,
I guess.
Yep. Yeah. It's actually a lot higher, which I didn't guess that. I thought. Anyway, so we will circle back.
Okay.
You gotta get your vision checked over there.
No, I saw your number 10.
Oh, but no. Oh, but
yeah. So we're gonna skip that one too.
Great.
Then.
We'll see how this goes. My number 10 is Astrobot, so we're gonna skip that. What is your number 9?
My number 9. I don't remember.
Maybe this is a terrible system we came up with. We can always skip so many times. This is gonna work itself out.
My number 9 is Helldivers 2.
It's not on my list.
Okay. So Helldivers 2 came out fairly early in the year. And granted, this one kind of falls into the category of like, we didn't put a ton of time into it. I think I put like 30 or 40 hours into the game. However, when it first came out, I think that it was just exactly what I was looking for in terms of like a multiplayer, play with your friends experience. And I had a really great time with it. I thought that it evolved the formula that was present in the first game, which I was a big fan of, and made it, more modern and pretty compelling. And I just had a really good time with Helldivers 2.
It grabbed a couple things that Monster Hunter does for us, in that it was a very good game. It was a very fun game with a decent amount of depth, but also hilarious.
Yeah.
Like just absolute shit show, and a pretty impressive iteration when you look at what Helldivers 1 is.
Yeah.
And when they're like, we're making Helldivers 2, and you're just like, this is Helldivers 2, and which at the end of the day is great. Like that game, it was a ton of fun. I don't know what it would have had to do to like catch us for longer. Maybe more of a gear system or something else, some other carrot, because really it was just kind of unlocking those all that stuff at the hub, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's a pretty great game, and I think it's only gotten better. I mean, they've really added a lot. They released another expansion
right around
like
the Game
at
Awards.
the Game Awards. They announced it and said it is available. So
it's a new enemy type in that, which is pretty funny. Like they flip you off when you kill them, which is pretty funny. But yeah, and like the humor in that game, I mean, it was present in the first game, very much so in the second game as well. And yeah, I just really liked it. It's one of that like I kept on looking at, and I kept installed for a long period of time until some of these like massive fucking games that required space on my hard drive that I had to delete Helldivers. But in the future, I think that they've had some missteps, and the community has been really pissed off. And they also recently have kind of fumbled the bag as well, because they added Killzone skins from the Sony IP Killzone, which Sony, bring that game back. Like just fucking bring it back. That's pretty cool.
Is Killzone good?
Yeah. I like them.
Is it? I thought Killzone was the game that just launched with every console and was a solid 8 at all times.
Well, a solid 8. Why are you so critical of 8s?
No, because I have a whole list of 9s.
Yeah, well, but in the grand scheme of things, like that's
sure.
That's not bad. You know what I mean? Like an 8 is worth your time. I
guess it's hard because a lot of Sony first party studios aren't making 8s.
Well, that's the argument, right? It's been a long time since a Killzone has came out, right? I think the last one was on the PS4. So with all of the resources and how Sony's kind of business model around first party IPs has kind of evolved over time. Potentially it could be a really cool idea. You just have to implement it correctly. And you would also have to get Guerrilla to stop making Horizon games, because that's what they shifted to.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe in another 4 years.
Right.
Like if that next proper Horizon, when it launches right next to Zelda for the third time and it fizzles, like maybe it doesn't do well. I don't know.
But anyways, they released Killzone skins so you can be a Hellghast, which is a pretty cool costume.
And they fascist, right?
Like well, yeah, but they look kind of like just the costume is cool. It's like they're space Nazis basically. But they charge like a high amount of money for the skins, and so the community has freaked the fuck out.
I think I'm remembering the article right, in that the developers came out and said the publisher didn't set these prices, we did, which was not what people would assume. Or usually it's like, oh man, that damn boss showed up and set all these prices, but they said, yeah, we set them. So that's they've had their PR, HR. They've had some ups and downs on that game. Yeah, definitely. Across the board.
Yeah. So that being said, though, like the out the box experience was really pretty compelling, and we had some damn good play sessions with this thing. So that is why it is my number 8.
We could also
or my number 9.
Absolutely, but we could also to its credit, we could go play it right now and we'd have a great time. Like I don't think it would matter that we haven't played it. I think it would just
probably be like a great time, because they've added so much that we haven't seen. So.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be solid. I'm confident that number 9 is not on your list. And that's Tactical Breach Wizards. I really like these types of games. That turn-based XCOM try to figure out the puzzle of how to efficiently like take down the enemies on a kind of an isometric overhead. The thing that surprised me about this game is that the writing, which could grate on some people, absolutely, but I found it to be very good. I really like the comedy. Maybe it's a lot of dad jokes, but I was super into it. I just thought it was kind of a quirky game. It was a lot of fun. And then there was quite a bit of depth as far as like how you are upgrading each one of your people and how you can accomplish the missions. And then all of like the bonus challenges to kind of, you can really pick your own difficulty on this game. If you want to just play through it, it's going to be a lot easier. But if you're trying to do these things like finish it X amount of turns and stuff like that, there's just a lot of depth for a game that I believe was $30 or something along those lines.
Is it even that expensive?
It might have been. It might have been
cheaper.
20. But I couldn't not put it on my list, especially as I crafted. I feel like I have one of the like a pretty wide, pretty big coverage as far as like genres here, which I was pretty impressed about. I was like, I kind of got almost one of everything over here. And I played a couple of games like this. That other one was what's the Steam World.
Dig.
Yeah. And that was the first one I played of those. But it was nice to play those two. And then, you know, I liked Steam World Dig, but then
Heist. Yeah.
And then immediately play Tactical and be like, oh man, they're both good games, but this one's quite a bit better. And I liked what Tactical Breach Wizards did, really levels above. Also, I will never not think it's funny that the after credits scene was, they just had a piece of art that they didn't know how to work into the game. And it's just a beach called Tactical Beach Wizards, and all the characters are in the gear, and shit's just, I don't know. I enjoy the humor of that game.
Yeah, I really like that game too. Don't get me wrong. I thought that was quite good. It just didn't land as effectively with me as it did you because of the writing. Some of it is funny, but some of it I just found grating.
Sure.
But the core gameplay loop is really quite good, and it's the closest thing to Into the Breach that's come out in a long period of time, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really love Into the Breach, so it scratches those same kind of vibes, and just like smaller scale strategy combat where it doesn't take a particularly long time to get through a level, longer than Into the Breach, but not by like a massive margin.
It's a great handheld game.
Yeah,
to be able to play on a train. If we had trains in Salt Lake, you could totally do that. But yeah, but very, very good. I liked it quite a bit. What is your next one?
My next one, number 8, is Dragon Quest HT 2D Remake. Dragon Quest 3. We talked about this one very recently. Really love this thing. The more I've kind of had time away from it, I just have thought how much I truly enjoyed it from front to back. Obviously we didn't talk about some of the end parts of the game because you were still messing around with it, but I think now is a good time to kind of talk about that.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, since we talked about it pretty recently, we won't go into super detail on why I think this thing is so good. But one of the things that we didn't talk about was the end, and the end is just crazy, mind-blowing in the same way that 11 was in a lot of ways. And what happens is you get to a certain point where you fight Baramos, which is like the main antagonist, you think, at the beginning of the game. But you fight him, and then you get first of all, you get a Phoenix that you get to ride around, which is like 10 times faster than the boat, which makes traversing the map like
your
nothing.
ship is a Phoenix.
No,
essentially your ship.
Yeah. You get a giant Phoenix that flies in the air,
which great.
It's good. It's real good. But then after that, you beat the final boss in air quotes, and then you get sucked into a vortex that drops you into the map from the first game. And the entire map from the first game is in this game. So you then have another probably like, I don't know, 10 to 15 hours of doing things on that map. And, you know, even though I never played it back in the day, I was just thinking about it from the through the lens of like, if you had played 1 and 2 back in the day and then 3 comes out, you think you're done with 3 and then holy fuck,
Right.
we're back on the map from the first game with like everything. It's all there as well.
It's amazing. How did you find out that was the map? Because I mean, organically, you probably wouldn't have known, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't
you had
know.
to-
I was just reading some stuff about it and found out that is what happened. So, and then you have like a full on story, quest in this area, the map from the first game where you've got to take out the main bad enemy, and you deal with your dad, you meet your dad, and like a bunch of shit happens.
That leads in because this is a prequel to Dragon Quest 1 and 2. So then,
Yeah.
presumably, if you've played those, you would be like, "Oh, cool! This is really making a lot of sense."
Yes.
So
So from that perspective, holy shit, man. I cannot believe they made something like this that was as like in depth or beefy back in 1988. It blows my mind. So, and then, just set aside that I think this is a fantastic kind of reimagining of a tried and true beloved game for a lot of people. So that's why it's on my list. It's just a fucking Dragon Quest game. It's easy.
I want to keep playing it. But I don't know that I can commit to that because there's a lot on that Steam Deck that I am playing right now, or that I want to keep playing.
Sure.
And we'll get to kind of where some of my time was spent, and I am confident that my next game is on your list higher because it's Metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. So what is your next game? I think we're almost through. I see maybe a couple more doubles.
Okay, my next game is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Is this on your list?
No.
Okay.
It was one of the hard ones for me because I had some games, but at the end of the day, we can get into it. But not on there.
Fantastic game, in my opinion. Really, really had a good time with this thing. I would say that you're probably at the end of the life cycle for this combat system. For me, if you come out with the next thing, which doesn't seem like that's what they're doing, because they've got this pirate game that's coming out in 2 months, and then at the Game Awards they announced a new IP. Well, 2 technically, with Virtua Fighter, whatever the next Virtua Fighter is going to be, and then this new. They didn't say, they give it like a project name, which I can't remember the name of the project, but it seems like RGG Studios is going to be working on some different stuff for a while before they go back to Ichiban and his rogue gallery of friends. So, but yeah, I really like this thing. I thought that moving it to Hawaii was a smart move. I didn't really understand the gravity of that decision until I was in Honolulu this year, and just the amount of Japanese tourists that are there. It's got to be like 80 to 90% are Japanese tourists. So it's like, it's a big spot for Japanese tourism. And
it was also a smart move just to get it out of Japan because this is the 8th one, and they've made a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, I mean, I'm sure, like, I haven't played all these, but I've played a couple, and it's just fresh. Like, the environment was very fresh and unique.
Really true to detail as far as Waikiki as well, where the majority of the game takes place. I mean, like I said, we talked about it a few months ago, but, like, there were spots in Waikiki that I was at where I was like, I fucking played this in Like a Dragon and it's here. This is crazy.
Where's the weird guy that I can play a game with?
Yeah, exactly. I want to deliver fucking food on a bike while I'm here, or
a bunch of Asians buried in sand up to their head.
yeah. That coupled with Dondoko Island, which absolutely consumed me for like 15 hours. When I got to Dondoko Island, I just stopped playing the game. I didn't leave Dondoko Island until I had maxed everything out on Dondoko Island. So that alone, that mini game, which obviously the Like a Dragon series is known for having these fun mini games. I think it's one of the best ones. It made me laugh hysterically, and it was like a pretty beefy kind of like checking boxes and managing this resort that you get, and catching bugs and fucking beating up pirates and people that show up on the island. All of it was good. It resonated with me significantly. So that is the reason why it's on the list.
It was pretty good. I liked it. I didn't finish that island thing. At a certain point, I was like, I want to finish this game. and I'm never like I talked to you. I knew how much time I needed to invest in it. I like it a lot. I think if I had to choose, I like the business simulator from the first Like a Dragon more, because I like that. I like numbers. I just at the end of the day, my
Also, like working with a chicken.
I think this for sure.
Yeah.
This game, I mean, I had a good time with it. I have complaints. And I think at the end of the day, like the story was good. I enjoyed generally all of that.
Falls apart towards the end.
There's a lot of good beats in it, and yeah, perhaps falls apart at the end. And I think they should have killed Kiryu. Like he spent too much time in that game being like he's gonna die, and then at the end it's like maybe not, and it's like
Decided to get his cancer treatment.
Kiryu, I spent 30 hours on the whole death thing, and I thought that was what was going to happen. But my biggest complaint is the combat, which is a system that in the first one, which I played about half of that game, was very fun, unique, and quirky. And in the second one, where I played the full game and finished it, just showed that it's not deep enough for what I want, basically. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it was just like, yeah, it needs more. So I would be worried as to what they'll do when they will bring him back, right? They're not done with Ichiban, but
he's one of the best characters in video games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with that. He's a lovable doofus, and in some ways he fits better into these games with these ridiculous scenarios than Kiryu, although it's a different type of like awkwardness. Like Kiryu's like a straight faced dude, and then you put him in these ridiculous things, and there's humor in that. Mm-hmm. But Ichiban's just this like sees the best in everybody, will just try to help everyone, and it gives him a lot of opportunities to have really good story beats. But at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, that the combat's not there. I just think it'd be a problem if they come out with the next one and it is the same without pretty extensive changes to it or something.
I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's not there. I think that like if you look at it in its totality, I mean, there is a lot to sink your teeth into here, right? The problem is that I don't think that the difficulty or some of the mechanics within the combat really fit with some of the deeper elements and like customization that you have at your disposal.
Yeah,
because the job system is super robust. Like
I need a game that forces me to need to deeply engage with that type of stuff. And I've played games this year that do, and I'm currently playing Romancing Saga, which is now on this list because I'm not far enough in it. But that game forces me to learn and get better at the systems, and that's what I crave in all these turn-based games, is to just be like, fuck, this is really hard. And then to figure out the little quirk and be like, oh, this boss, once I do this to him, it's going to drastically help. And in Like a Dragon, it was like, I'm just hilariously great and awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Good game, though. I highly recommend it if you haven't played it and you have any interest in these types of games.
And it's comedy. It's very funny. It's very extremely funny.
Yes.
This game's not on your list because my number 7 is Persona 3. Okay. And a game I finished. I haven't talked about finishing it on this podcast, but after the last podcast, I had about 3 weeks to say, well, I can play anything I want. We're going into the game of the year, so what am I going to play? And in my head, all this time, all year almost, I've been like, I'm going to go back to Final Fantasy VII, and that's what I'm going to do. And then when it came to it, and I was like, I didn't want to do that for whatever reason. I maybe get into that later because I still would like to finish that game. But I was like, wanted to go back to Persona, and I just really, really like that combat system, which is very familiar. You can just, if you played a Persona game, Persona 3 is a slightly more simplified version. It's not as hectic as, say, a 5 as far as just things to do. And I really, really enjoyed it. And also the story in Persona 3 is right up there. I'm not sure where I fall on all of them, but I like it more than 5 because I have issues with the story in 5, and like the overall story. The social links are still all the same shit where they are what they are, but the story, it's really dark, and there's a lot of death in this game. There's death of main characters in this game that is not really, I don't recall that ever happens in 4 or 5. Like a character that you play, I don't think they ever die.
I'm drawing a blank.
I don't think that ever happens, and that was that happens in this game. And they have some pretty mature notes. I will say it's extraordinarily awkward because these games are fun to play. They're very, it's upbeat when it's a Monday or Tuesday, and it's like dun dun dun, and you're like, oh sweet, let's go get a hamburger, and it's a little jarring when one of your best friends dies on a Monday evening. And on a Tuesday morning, dun, 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 and you're getting texts from people that were there. They're like, "You want to go to a movie?" I'm like, fucking not really. Like, I'm kind of sad. Like, what do we? I guess I'll go to the movie because we need to work on our relationship. But you might die too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I pretty deeply invested in this thing. I did not use a guide except for quest answers.
Yeah.
I didn't even use a guide for social link answers. I don't know if you usually do on where you fall and all that, but I just like went for it because I was like, let's not do the Persona 5 thing. So I maxed out, we'll say about 80% of the social links. There was only a couple. And by the time you do that, that's just a couple fucking losers, right? That I wasn't really upset that I didn't get to max out their social link. And I had like 80% of the compendium thing of the personas, and I crafted some motherfucker, like absolutely like world wrecking personas, and it feels really good because you feel like you helped bring all their abilities in.
Mm-hmm.
The only complaint I have on the game is I still ran ass shit to do because I didn't play it efficiently. And what basically happens in that game is that you don't get enough to do at night. There are a handful of social links that are only at night, but once you get those done, it is few and far between. And essentially, if you go to the arcade, you can raise your persona's stats. And I probably played the arcade 30 days, over like 50. Because there was
Did you do all of the books in the like dorm room lobby? Behind the desk, they're like
it's a computer.
Oh, it's a computer. Yeah.
Yeah. I did all that stuff. I had every single one of those. From what I can see, I didn't miss anything as far as like activities to do, but I absolutely ran ass shit to do. So before we move on, I know what I want from Persona, and they'll never do it. I don't want you to be able to like min-max and get all the social links. I want it to be not even close. I want to be able to get like 60%, but I want there just to be always options. So by the end of the game, like you never have this dead time, but you're like, I didn't max out all the social links. You can't. I got 60% of them. I got all the ones I wanted, and there was always a different social link available, and I didn't hit this dead period, and that's what I want.
I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. That is like the most unsatisfying thing that I can possibly imagine.
You'd have to New Game Plus it.
No, I'm not doing that. I want to, if I like respect my time, if I'm going to put in 100+ hours into a game, I want to not maybe do everything, but I want at least the social links in these Persona games. I want them all maxed out.
For sure. And some of these could have been solved if they had figured out how to have some of these social links be day or night.
Did you max all the social links?
No, there was probably 2 or 3 people I wasn't able to because I didn't even try to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But they were not like a lot of your classmates are only the day.
Yeah.
They're not at night. So, and I don't recall how Persona 5 worked, if maybe some of those could be done day or night, but that's one of the solutions is they just need to have more things available at night. So you didn't just straight up run out of shit to do.
Yeah, that's something to take into consideration as well. While 3 is well liked and a lot of people love it, and sometimes it's their favorites. Yeah, like it's an old ass game, and we're talking about 2 other games that came out after it that have kind of refined, and now 3 if you count Metaphor, that have refined this kind of system in tangible ways. So
for sure, and we'll talk about Metaphor because I will see what you where that falls in if you ran out of stuff, but. What's your next? Well, are we down to 6? I think number 6.
So number 6 is Unicorn Overlord.
I forgot that game came out this year.
Yeah, it was early on in the year. Unicorn Overlord is do not sleep on that game. It is pretty fantastic, man.
Vanillaware, right?
Vanillaware. So you've got that beautiful hand-drawn art style that they're known for. And, you know, there was a lot of criticism of Aegis 13 Sentinels because the story beats in Aegis were fantastic and the draw of that game. But the combat or the strategy portions of the game, while they weren't bad, they were just kind of like underbaked, I would say. And so you didn't really have a lot of strategy in mind when you were playing that game.
It also looked like shit. Like it wasn't.
That part of it didn't look
like
good
an
at all.
eyesore to play.
Yeah, for sure. That was a weird decision. But then comes Unicorn, and it completely kind of erases that kind of argument or that narrative around Vanillaware not being able to put out something that is like strategically compelling, because this thing has a very unique kind of battle system where it is kind of passive, where you're basically planning out your formation before a battle takes place, and then you're just kind of watching the results of the battle. But it is very satisfying because you're stacking different unit types on top of one another for kind of these experimentation to see what works and what doesn't work. Fantastic from that regard, in my opinion. And then the open area map that you were traversing, having the ability to kind of upgrade these settlements as you progress the story, investing resources in those settlements, and then they providing you different boons was really satisfying to me. The only thing that I would say that drags this one down in comparison to other Vanillaware games is like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, where the story, while it's not bad by any means, it is fairly generic. And
like high fantasy.
Yeah, it's fairly generic. And so that's the only knock that I have for this thing, but I really loved it, man. And I thought that it was like kind of a breath of fresh air. And it is just another in a long list of Vanillaware games that I have absolutely loved. And I like we talked about when the game came out, I think it is hard to argue that they are not one of the most diverse studios at being able to put out different types of games from different genres and doing a really good job at it, whether it's like a side-scrolling beat 'em up to visual novel to fucking the strategy RPGs, man. They really are a fantastic studio, and their art and the way that their games look, coupled with some great music, I have nothing but good things to say about the studio, and that's why it's on my list.
I like that game a lot. I think I played it on the Switch, and that's probably why I didn't play it more.
Same on the Switch as well.
I'm so fucking over the Switch. But I read there's a few articles out right now about just an interview with a developer, and he basically says, yeah, we have no interest, or we're not currently exploring bringing these things to PC. And I really think that's a questionable decision, in that it would expand. Like a lot of their games would play really well on PC. Unicorn Overlord has a lot of people that play that type of game.
Yeah.
The visual novel side, like a 13 Sentinels style, like that lives on in Steam. And I don't understand really, like fucking outsource that shit and you will be a bigger studio the next game you release. Like people need to play more games from them. But it's just kind of an interesting decision to just say, yeah, we're not touching PC.
Yeah, that is an interesting decision. I would like to know more about that, like the reasoning behind it. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Seems like you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot. It's
just like, especially where like it's hard to make games, and if like that type of studio needs to find success with pretty much presumably like every release, and it's just like, you need as many people that are into your stuff as possible. Like, come on, like,
yeah.
And I want to play it on the Steam Deck, so help me out.
Yeah, good game. High recommend. I mean, all of these I recommend, but as we get further and further up this list, pretty high recommend on this thing. Very unique and not a lot like it this year. So go and play that thing.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to say my number 6, and you're going to say it's higher on your list, and then we're going to go to a break.
Okay.
And then we're so fucking close to never skipping a game again. My number 6 is Silent Hill 2.
Not on my list.
Oh, okay. Surprising. I didn't have a lot of expectations with this thing. I had no idea. Like I'm not a Silent Hill guy. I've never played through one before, so I was just really completely impressed in their ability to build tension. And I think that's like the biggest reason why I wanted this thing here is because the game didn't feel like they had a timer where it's like, hey, every 30 seconds you need to have a jump scare or a jump scare that it leads to combat, I guess. And this game doesn't do that. And there was times where it just builds and builds and builds, and then there's no payoff. And I think that is an extraordinarily effective way to build tension, because then you really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And most games these days will always have that thing that jumps out. And while the story is a little too off the rails, like at the end to try to be like, what is the story? Like I would like it to be a little more grounded than what it is. I still was fully engaged through like all of it, and was very interested in where it was leading and what the fuck was going on. And it played really well. Like the combat that is in the game. It's a well-functioning game. These are the types of remakes that I will play all day long. Like when they are done right, it is really satisfying to fucking play these things.
No, I love this game. But when I was obviously in contention for my list. I really enjoyed it. I think that everything you said is spot on. The only thing that kind of kept it off the list was, games that I enjoyed more this year. And then also just, it's somewhat limited in what it is, right? I mean, it is a remake of a very old game now. And so it's very true to the source material, which I appreciate. But this is one where I feel like they could have evolved it a little bit more in terms of combat, maybe some different weapons and things like that you could get. And there is like one weapon that you can get Pyramid Head sword in this game, which I think is pretty cool.
It definitely there's kind of you can make the argument that it is kind of interesting to have a very limited weapon set.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe for an even shorter game.
Sure.
Because once it's beyond like 6 to 7 hours, I think you need other stuff to tinker with, and then being able to optimize to get extra expended like ammo and things like that is just another thing for you to do where you feel like you're getting more powerful. And this game really it does not spend a lot of time making you feel powerful.
No.
And that's kind of the
intent. That's kind of by design,
yeah, kind of the intent of the game. But when you're just looking at it in the lens of gameplay, then it's hard to say it doesn't suffer there.
I will say there is one thing that is absolutely heads and tails game of the year material in this game, and that is Dog Command Center ending. That is the greatest ending for a video game maybe ever. Not even in 2024, but just generally. Just fucking a Shiba Inu is pulling the strings and controlling all of what's going on. And just James like getting down on his knees and going, no, when he realizes that the dog is pulling the strings. It is fantastic.
That right there is very old. Like that is we don't get a lot of games with that type of bullshit.
Yeah.
At the end of them, and that is was this early 2000s? Like,
yeah, like 2001. I think.
Like that is a very gamified thing that I wish we would see a little more of. Like it would be amusing if God of War or The Last of Us has like fucking some bullshit like
for sure.
They probably shouldn't do that, but still,
no, they absolutely should do that. I mean, that's the thing is it doesn't. Like, it's just an optional ending. It's it's obviously the true ending, and the real thing.
And that one specifically, you have to have New Game Plus to even get it. So you can't get it on your first play.
Yeah, it's like very similar to like some of the stuff that they used to do with like once you. I think it was in Resident Evil 2 where you beat the game and then you got the speed run option where you were just a giant tofu, like a piece of tofu with like the stars beret on, hopping around and doing speed runs, like shit like that. You don't see a lot of that in games nowadays, and that shit's hilarious to me.
That is pretty funny. Somewhat off top. Well, actually, I'll sidebar that. You're probably going to talk about the game later. Actually, that is the 6th, so we should probably let's take a break.
Okay,
and we'll come back for our final top 5s and see where we're at. All right, we are back. We're down to the top 5.
Yeah.
Ish. Depending on how many redo, because of the rules, the shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here we are. But you are up. What is your number 5?
My number 5 game for 2024 is Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Yep.
That's
Really,
the biggest surprise so far.
really love that game. Why would that be surprising? I wasn't negative about it when we talked about it.
I thought performance would have just kept it off.
No, the performance was not great, but also it got better the more you played it, like we talked about. But the reason why it's on the list is because of the core mechanic here. And when we talk about Zelda games, we've been kind of stagnant, and I use that term loosely because I know that Tears of the Kingdom
You'll
did a
be murdered.
lot of cool things that were different from Breath of the Wild, but fundamentally it's a very similar system. And so with me and Zelda games, I want to see something new and fresh, and I absolutely think that Echoes of Wisdom is a new and fresh idea, and I think it's executed really well. And I saw a lot of people saying that they lost interest in the mechanic and it didn't resonate with them long term. I was on the opposite side of the spectrum, from the beginning to the end. Just the sheer amount of items, enemy types, objects that you collect in the game. I mean, it is significant. There is a large amount of objects that you collect.
I remember you saying, if anything, it was like too many. Because
it is too many.
The way to sort through it was...
that is frustrating for sure. It is. But the fact that you just have so many options at your disposal to kind of experiment, tinker with, and play the way you want to play, I think is very compelling. And I think it is a very smart idea that never really, annoyed me it annoyed me, but it didn't get old for me. And so that's why it's on the list for me. I really enjoyed this game.
I wonder if that mechanic would work in a 3D Zelda.
Yeah, it could, but you'd have to put in the work, and that would be hard. It'd be a hard thing.
Yeah, for sure. It would be very funny. Like it would really expand like the creativity of what people could do with this science set that they seem like even where this is a fresh look or it's unique, it's still pulling from what seems to be a very clear direction of Zelda, which is giving you a bunch of science and saying go out there or a physics set, and go out there and have fun. And I don't know, I'd be surprised. I don't know how you go back from it. I really don't. Like, as this series goes forward in 3 years or whenever the next one comes out, like, I just have a hard time believing that they're not going to give us some fucking crazy shit to go and experiment with again in an open world.
Yeah, I mean, Aonuma, and I don't know the dates or timestamps on these quotes, but he was pretty adamant about the next Zelda project not really following in the same kind of form as the last 2 mainline games, right? And that might have been him talking about this game, because it absolutely is different in a lot of ways than those last 2. But hopefully it is the next big Zelda release for the Switch 2. Is going to be something unique. And I think that of any team and head of a team can do it, it's them for sure. They just are like an idea factory, even though that's actually a name of a studio that makes games. But
next Zelda is probably 3 years off, something like that.
Or longer. Yeah. I'm sure that they're working on something internally and they've got like a clear idea, but is it in pre-production? Probably, or maybe they are actually working on it, who knows. But yeah, man, I mean, is this thing as like grand and as compelling as Tears of the Kingdom was? No, it's not. I mean, but I don't think that it's trying to be, and I don't think that it has to be, because this is kind of like a spin-off in a lot of ways, harkening back to the old school type of Zelda games. And I think that it is cool to see a game that allows you to play as Princess Zelda finally. Yeah. And that's a cool thing. And for a lot of people, that's a big thing, right? It's not as big for me, but I appreciate that that's something that they, finally got out of the way.
And maybe that's what the next big Zelda does as well. With a maybe you can play as both. Maybe they go GTA
That would be cool.
5 style where
That'd
you
be cool.
can switch back and forth.
As long as you can play a Sheik as well, I'm all right with that.
Won't be Midna.
Yeah. Okay.
She was cool.
Yeah. How about Navi? Plays Navi?
Yeah, I
Hey,
want.
listen,
I want to just be able to push a button. It's like, hey,
listen,
It-
listen, please listen.
What a fucking choice that was.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
yeah. Or they do like a multiverse where they just bring in like, all sorts of different characters from different Zelda games. Like,
Oh,
who
yeah.
knows? You could do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Even though they did that.
Zelda
technically-
2. I want that guy. The side scroller.
The side-scrolling? That game sucks. That game's garbage, dude. I know that's a controversial opinion because some people fucking love that game, but I mean, come on.
I've never played it.
It's bad.
I'll-
It's not a good game.
I'll go play it. I'll come back.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
let-
yeah.
let
Report
everyone-
back on what you think about it. But so that's why it's on the list. It might be surprising, but I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it so much that we've got a little nephew that is really into games, and I think that I am solely responsible for like his intake of video games in a given year. So we buy him all the age appropriate games, and Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was the game that I chose for him this year.
That's awesome. I'm very excited when I get to do that a little more, and we'll talk about like my experience with my daughter when you talk about Astrobot for sure. She's got to learn how to fucking read. Like that's the biggest hurdle right now.
Come on, learn to read, you fucking 4-year-old.
She's very interested, and then she can't read, and that's she can't see the stats, and it's like, okay, come on. Do you need more strength or dexterity? She's like, I don't know what those are. Like, what the fuck? But all right, my number 5 game, we talked about it recently. I don't know how long we need to go into this, but it's probably the most controversial of our list as far as where we have agreement on, because it's Nine Souls. And
at least it's not in your top 3.
Sure. We haven't gotten to the top 3 yet, but yeah.
Nothing will make me angrier than this, so we're good.
I for whatever reason, I fucking love the game. We have pretty big disagreements about it, but I really liked the mechanics and the combat and the bosses, and I think that paired with a very surprising good story.
Yeah.
That was a close one. Jared's almost knocking over his beer. Pair that with a story that I was expecting the least out of. A lot of these, you just never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And I think it was really a lot better than what the other games in the genre usually come to the table with. Like Ori tells a pretty good tale, but like this one really, there's a lot there, and there's lots of characters, and it pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, like the full story when you understand what happened. And
Ori does a pretty good tell. I think Ori does an exceptional.
I think
you hit its totality, the music,
I agree,
all of it.
The Ori doesn't have as much lore as this one. That was really the only reason, and not as many unique characters. Where this one's got quite a few characters that are very compelling. And it will all, like, there's a community around this thing. The subreddit is mainly people drawing all these fucking characters all day long
And jerking off to them.
Like, probably.
Yeah.
I can assume.
That's a safe assumption.
I should leave the subreddit immediately. It's just, shit. I thought that they were just nice pictures.
Perfect parry for me, ye perfect parry, you dirty boy.
No, at the end of the day, I was very pleasantly surprised. I loved it, and I thought the boss fights were extremely satisfying when you learned them and got them down, and then were able to finally beat these quite challenging bosses. So that's my number 5. Moving on, your number 4.
Number 4 for me is Astrobot.
That was my number 10. So now we're getting into the ones we've skipped all along the way.
Yeah.
Why is it your number 4?
Just because I think it is a fantastic, platformer that really brings in a lot of love and nostalgia to the Sony property over its entire lifespan. And it's not one note. And I think that that's what is so compelling about the game, is that while they could have went the direction of like, okay, we've got, a massive back library of games that we can kind of pull from with the Astrobot, or the bot collection, I should say, and we'll make this one Jak and Daxter, and we'll make this one Ratchet and Clank themed, and like that in itself is compelling to me, and I just really enjoyed finding the bots in the individual level. Some of them are pretty hard to find, so it takes you, you know, a couple of times to go through them, to track them all down. But you know, there's not a lot of meat around the mechanics of like finding the bots. Like once you find them, they go to the hub area, and then you can punch them. And if you've unlocked like that further thing, they will do something that's specific to their series, which I think is a cool thing. It's really neat.
It's a payoff for everyone that has been playing a lot of these games of these bots, because
Which we have. So
yes, you like my favorite one is if you go fucking punch Jesus Christ, the God of War main character Kratos. If you punch him, he will take his axe and throw it at you and freeze you, and it's very fucking funny. And I've played around with it. Like I will punch him and sprint away. I'm like, run away, and he will throw it. And then my daughter's like, no. It's great. It's very cool.
Yeah, the Bloodborne character, if you punch him, he like uses the gun to parry your attack, which is pretty great.
Just
or stun you.
I'm just mad he's in there.
Why?
Because everyone just wants more of that.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's a sore spot.
Have you seen what the hoops or leaps that they're going through in the community? Because there was to go hand in hand with the 30th anniversary of Sony, the PlayStation. They released a bunch of like themes for the PlayStation 5, which is very cool, and it was like a free thing. There was like a new intro when you turned on the console that was like 30 years of play, and then you could choose between themes from PlayStation 1 all the way to 4, and kind of emulate those systems on your PlayStation 5, which I thought was a really smart idea. But in conjunction with that, Sony released a trailer basically just being like, oh yeah, like 30 years of play, and they showed a bunch of different kind of like small clips of games throughout the years, and each screenshot would be like, it's about strength, it's about courage, and it was like all these different games. And then the last one was Bloodborne, and it was like, it's about perseverance. And people in the community were like, that means that they are like listening to us, and they know that we're like, petitioning them for a new Bloodborne, and they're going to release a new Bloodborne announcement. And I'm like, you guys are fucking crazy. Like, take the tinfoil hat off. Like, calm down. It's probably going to happen. It likely going to happen, especially Sony just became the number 1 shareholder for Kadokawa, which is the owner of From Software. So Sony owns more shares From Software than any other studio. So likely those games are going to get funneled to Sony. There's going to be exclusivity rights for future games.
Someone else will make it
after Night Rain or whatever the fuck this thing that they're doing that was shown off the Game Awards. But let's just pump the brakes. It's gonna happen. It's either going to be a remake.
I just don't think Frem will do it.
It's going to be a remake, or it's going to be a new mainline game. So fucking calm down. It's going to happen.
It's
might not happen soon, but it's going to happen.
At this point, I don't know that I'd be a little bummed if it was just a remake. I'd still play it. But
it doesn't need a remake. It came out on PlayStation 4. It doesn't need a remake.
I think the frames per second are not where you want them to be when you play one of those
That's
games.
not enough. That's not enough. And yes, if you have the know-how, you can get that thing to run at 60 frames a second pretty easily. That's not enough to be like, let's remake a game. The game is gorgeous. It's still gorgeous. And
That's true.
The frame rate is somewhat lacking. It should be at 60 or higher. But no, make a new one. Make a new Bloodborne 2. Do it.
I agree. My number 4 game, which we should note, that my number 4 game will probably be the only time the odds are stacked against me having this game higher than you, or this genre, is Tekken 8. Just generally, me having a fighting game higher than you on this list is probably not going to happen often. But the thing Tekken 8 did for me is really, like, I almost immediately loved it, and I wish I had played way more of it. Not like 10 more hours of it. I wish I played like 100 more hours of it, because I had a fucking great time. The hitbox, like, it made me purchase one, and it just clicked. And I fucking loved playing, was it Nina?
Nina Williams. To be clear, you didn't buy a hitbox. You bought a Victrix, a leverless controller.
It's the genre, didn't they? I mean, isn't
Well,
that
Hitbox created it,
Yeah.
so it's like saying when you say "give me a tissue," you say "give me a Kleenex."
Yeah, it's just leverless. Hitbox is a much better name, but yes,
Okay.
than leverless
Yeah, but a hitbox
is a brand.
well, no, but also hitbox is like a thing in a fighting game, so we just need to clear that up, I think.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought the game was really good. I'm not an absolute. I don't know all the mechanics as deep as a lot of people, but I was able to engage with it in a way that I thought was really fun, and I was able to learn like enough combos to be like, man, there's really something here, and I could see where at a time you could really get a lot of enjoyment out of this thing, like just an enormous amount. And I'm still kind of bummed that I just have not played it more. Like it was awesome. It was an absolutely fantastic game. I don't know, like I see them announce other fighting games, and I'm just like, man, I if I'm gonna go play a fighting game, I would rather just go play that one. Like that's the one I want to go play. Like if they announce a Mortal Kombat, I'm like, I'd rather go play Tekken.
Yeah, I agree.
By like a large margin.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mortal Kombat, especially the newest one, that thing is not doing well.
No, people are upset.
Yeah, Warner Brothers is basically just like, yeah, we're funneling all of our attention into like 3 IPs, and one of them is Mortal Kombat. So we're going to get a new Mortal Kombat sooner rather than later, and it will probably suck because of it.
I don't know if I don't know that I have a lot of interest. I didn't play, like the stories are fun. So I guess I would maybe play through it, but I did not engage. Like I finished the story and moved on.
Yeah, the game's not good.
And
it's not good.
And I don't think like the stories are fun to play through, but I think that's a terrible way to play those types of games because you switch characters every 3 matches or whatever.
Right.
And you don't know any moves. And it's just you're out there like just it's a bad product because you don't know anything with these characters. You haven't learned them. And I was just thinking about it the other day. I'm like, man, they spend all this time on the story, and then it's just like, I don't know any combos. I gotta learn fucking, I'm the fucking B girl, or like, what will she do? And it's just, it's, it's, you know what I mean, though? It's just kind of like playing through it, and they're not hard. Like, you can get through the matches, but they're just sloppy matches because you haven't really learned the characters. And I guess it's a good way to onboard you to kind of start to learn their kit, but you're basically just throwing out their basic abilities and brute forcing your way through the match.
Yeah. So Tekken 8 obviously is on my list as well. It's number 10 for me. Just because I didn't put enough time into it this year. That's the only reason why. I think it's a fantastic game. I think it is heads and tails better than Tekken 7 in many, many different areas. That is a point of kind of contention in the community right now. Some of the top players think that it's just a 50-50 fest. But I think that they're looking at Tekken 7 through rose-colored glasses, and some of the most prominent players in the community are really critical of Tekken 8 right now. But then there are like some very prominent content creators that have kind of poked holes in that argument in a pretty effective way that I've seen, and I think that I just think that, especially at the highest level, when you find success with like a competitive game, like an esports centric game that fighting games now are, if you find massive amounts of success and then you maybe don't have as much success with the newest release in a game, you're going to have a hard time with it because it's your livelihood. And the person I'm talking about in particular,
you're saying about someone that plays the game for a living.
Yes, Arslan Ash, who is widely regarded not just with Tekken 7, but Tekken as a whole because of what he did in Tekken 7 in particular. He's from Pakistan, which is impressive in its own right because Pakistan is pretty limited in the resources they have. But the scene in Pakistan has kind of taken over Tekken. Historically, it was Korea that was the strongest region for Tekken, even though it's from Japan. But now that table has kind of shifted, and Pakistan has taken over Tekken, and the best players, Arslan Ash, one of the best players of Tekken ever, has been very vocal and critical of Tekken 8 because he thinks it's a 50-50 fest where it's like you get hit by something and then it's just like make the right decision. You got to guess right here. And if you don't guess right, you probably lose the round, right?
Yeah.
Because the damage scaling, the heat in this game, the heat function in this game allows you to extend combos in really critical ways that do massive amounts of damage. But it's like that's a fighting game. You know what I mean? Not all games are 50-50 fests, and I'm not making that argument, but like every fighting game has an element of guess what I'm going to do next.
Yes.
And if you guess correctly, then you can probably punish me. If you don't, you're going to get punished. So I don't know. I think
that's like as basic as like high block or low block. Like, which one did you do? And now you got punished. Like,
that's a 50-50. Yeah. But the argument is there was ways to, the argument that people are making is there was ways to kind of negate 50-50s off of like knockdown situations, where that's typically when someone has what it's called okazeme in the fighting game community, which is basically like I put you in a position where you have to make a decision, and I'm in an advantageous position, and I can make you make a decision that's either going to make you lose more health because I'm going to continue a combo string or whatever it is, right? Yeah. But I feel like, they've gone through trials and tribulations, not dissimilar to what we talked about with Helldivers. The community has been pretty upset with Harada and Michael Murray about some of the decisions that they've made surrounding Tekken 8 with some of the monetization stuff. Jinpachi Temple, that's wrong. It's not Jinpachi Temple. It's Jinmaji Temple was a stage that released in conjunction with Heihachi Mishima, which was the third DLC character. And they initially said, like, you release this, if you buy the battle pass then, or the premium edition, I should say, you won't have to pay for anything until season 2. And then they charged for the stage, and it pissed off people, and it wasn't included in the pass. And so people were really mad about that. And so it made some like kind of foolish decisions in terms of like community retention. But the bottom line is that fucking game is just a fucking joy to play. The base roster was fantastic. And they've made some pretty good decisions in terms of DLC characters. Nothing that's going to like shock anybody except for this DLC character that just came out, which is Clyde from Final Fantasy 16, who I've watched some videos of that character. He looks like a lot of fun to play. And some of the best streamers are like absolutely wrecking with him. So
I would imagine you hate that shit.
The tie-in characters. Yeah, I don't generally love it. I'd rather, like, Tekken's got just such a robust list of fucking characters, and I would rather them roll out like, hey, we're doing Joey and Roger again, which it's like those characters are silly and stupid, but like take the time to make them good or like compelling to play and not joke characters.
I'm not a massive enthusiast of the genre, but I do not like the special guest characters across the board. Because
Mortal Kombat is the worst at it.
Because in my brain, even though there are iterations and the combat system changes, like I believe generally the characters, if you've played one on the previous game, they probably don't drastically change how they function. Like generally, if you like that flow of that character, it's going to transfer to the next one. And I could never get over like, oh yeah, I'm going to play fucking Spawn in Soul Calibur. Yeah. And then the next Soul Calibur, unless they get Spawn again, like it's just gone. And it's like, well, like, no, I want to play the characters within this world. And then if I catch one and I love it, like if I play Tekken 9, I'm going to play Nina, and I'm not going to be like, oh, I wish Clyde was here. Like, God, if only like, and that's where I just can't get on board with it. Maybe it's okay because this is how they sell DLC stuff. Like, it's probably done for a reason, right? Yeah. Like just a random new character or these gimmicky ones, like the fucking Mortal Kombat is the worst, like the Terminator ones and all that shit.
Yeah. Well, and Tekken is they're offenders of this as well. Like you had Negan from fucking Walking Dead in Tekken 7, and you also had Noctis from from Final Fantasy 15, and then you had Geese Howard from fucking Fatal Fury and the King of the Fighters. So they do this, right? But it's just like they strike a fine balance where it's like you're going to get more Tekken characters as time goes on. The next probably 2 or 3 characters are going to be Tekken characters, and it's just like it's also like it's unfortunate for me personally because it's like they're just going to roll out the most popular characters. So like people are going to be like, give me Anna Williams, which is Nina's sister, so you'll probably like her.
It's great. She plays similar.
There are similarities, but there's drastic differences as well. But it's going to be things like that. Just give me Julia, and it's just like give me fucking Roger, give me Ogre. Characters that are a little bit more niche, but like potentially you add them into the game and you take the time to update them could be really compelling. But anyway, you cut it. I want to get back to this game. It's fantastic. I think it's one of the best fighting games that's come out in the last decade. That's what I'll say.
Haven't I picked a very safe character going forward?
Nina's top tier still.
Well, not even skill. I'm just saying, like, is she ever not in the base release? Like, is it probably pretty safe to say that
she's in a lot. She's not. I don't know if she's necessarily always in the base games, but she's a very popular character.
Okay. All right.
I might be wrong about that, but she's in a lot of them for sure.
No, at the end of the day, I just wish I had more time because I see the fucking the leverless stick.
You need hundreds and hundreds of hours,
and that's the playlist.
That's the tough part. That's why it's lower on my list too, is because it's like we play so many games, like, and I would rather play Street Fighter. Well, I would rather play Tekken 8 than Street Fighter 6 right now, just because there's not a character that has resonated with me. And Street Fighter 6 is doing the same thing, where this last season has been just fucking, it's been 2 characters from the game, and now the last 2 are 2 fucking guest characters. So you got Terry Bogard and Mai Shiranui is the next character that's coming out. And like I played Terry a little bit, and I love Terry from SNK games, but like give me Street Fighter characters. Yeah. And then the last one is fucking Elena, which is a character that literally gets her super and can heal half of her health bar. So they better fucking not give her healing in this game. She's always had healing. She had healing. Yeah. She started in 3. She had healing in that. It was bullshit. You're winning, and then you get knocked down, and then someone just like mashes back, and then hits a button, and she heals half her health. And it's just like, fuck that. Then in Ultra Street Fighter 4, they released fucking Elena, and she had healing in that too. Bullshit. And so they're like, yeah, we got M. Bison, Terry Bogard, Mai Shiranui, and fucking Elena as the characters in season 2. No, give me I'm waiting until season 3. Is all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
I'm very angry about it, Nick.
Clearly. We're down to the top 3. What's your third?
Top 3, yeah. The third game on my 2024 list is Black Myth Wukong. Very emphatic number 3 as well.
This one I'm legitimately bummed out about that because it's my style of game. I really love everything about it, and just isn't on the list just because I just didn't play more of it and play a decent amount. I don't know, 15 hours or so, and really thought that it was doing pretty much checking all the boxes, right up there with really how I feel about like Lies of P. I don't necessarily. It'd be a hard comparison, I guess. I'd have to play more of Wukong, but like they're good. They're good ones of those, right? And Wukong seemed like it was doing a lot and it had a lot of depth as far as what you could upgrade and change.
Yeah, a lot of people are pissed off that Black Myth would not get, and they're being totally chill about it and not weirdos.
The main developer is pissed off, and he's made some comments that's like, "Well, it just sucks when you make the best thing of the year and you don't win." Or it's like, okay, guy, like I get it. Like, I guess I get it, but like
that sidebar, the writing was on the wall with the Game Awards. Obviously the people that are making those decisions, a lot of the people that we listen to and read their articles or listen to their podcasts, across the board, people are very high on Astrobot. And I think, a lot of them have children and things like that, which factors into it. The one that I've listened to the most in the last little bit is Jeff Gertzman. And he loves Astrobot. And I know that he's on the panel for voting for Game of the Year. And, I think that has something to do with the fact that he's got a gaggle of fucking children, and he's talked about it. They enjoyed watching him play it. And I think that it's hard when you're a parent to be like, oh, like, and you can speak to this too. It's like, oh my God, like my kid loves this and I love this because of that. Like, I'm sure it elevates your enjoyment of a game. And so the fact that thing won, not my pick, but I see why it won.
I understand why it won. I don't necessarily agree. I don't agree. It's number 10 on my list. Where was it on yours?
4.
4 or 5. At the end of the day, like that thing just couldn't.
4.
I can't put it higher on my list because I don't like the genre. Doesn't do it for me, and that's it. Like it's fantastic, but like that, no story, no numbers to tinker with. At the end of the day, it's usually I'm just not that excited about it. And I fucking played the whole game with my daughter, had a great time. Number 10.
So anyways, people are really mad that Wukong didn't win Game of the Year. It did win Best Action Game, I'm pretty sure, which like I can see that.
Yeah.
The speech that the guy gave was pretty annoying because he was just like, oh yeah, like my game's not hard at all, which like, okay, like your game actually is pretty hard, especially towards the end.
I saw that, and I don't like, it's a hard game, period. Those bosses are difficult.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But that being said, set aside all the controversy as well that we talked about when we talked about it initially. I think for a first outing for a studio, like leading up to this thing, we saw screenshots of it and we were like, oh, okay, this thing's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And it is absolutely beautiful. One of the best looking games I've ever played. But you kind of get this sense like, oh, this is probably going to be really pretty, but is the mechanics going to be there? Sure. Is it going to be content rich enough? And are the mechanics going to, match the fidelity? And in this case, in like a very surprising case, it does. It's fantastic. The game plays super well. Feels very good being a monkey and swinging that staff around. And it obviously borrows from a lot of From Software games and is very similar in a lot of ways. It's Souls-like in a lot of ways. But then I also think that there are elements of it that are much more cinematic than a lot of Souls games. And the argument could be made that like Souls games are more cinematic during gameplay, and this is more cinematic like when you're not controlling the monkey, right?
Sure.
And so it melds those two things together exceptionally well. And then when we're talking about the length of this thing and where it takes you, the different zones are incredibly diverse. And there is so many bosses in this game, like outrageous amount of bosses that are mostly unique, or almost all unique, and require you to kind of approach them in different ways. And I just felt that it was really compelling. I love the combat in this game. There's a lot of build agency, so you can kind of tinker. The skill tree is massive in this thing, so you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to play the game. And after I finished it, like watching videos of people and the ways that they played, it was like drastically different than the way I played. So
that's cool.
It is very cool. And I just love this thing, man. I thought that it was the best one of these that's come out in a long while, since Elden Ring for sure. And so that's why it's so high on my list. I have nothing but good things to say about it, other than, some of the outside stuff, but the controversy, the developers being weirdos to a certain extent.
For like no reason, which was the weirdest thing about the whole thing. Like it garnered a lot of anti-woke attention.
Yeah.
And then you play the game and you're just like, there's fucking nothing here. Like what
that was
like,
it was
like the thing that you guys usually rally around, and the types of characters and the explicitness and things that you demand. That's not here.
Some of the people in games media lost the plot with this thing, and look, I don't know if we necessarily need to rehash all of it, but I will say that it might have been part and parcel of the time that we're in, an election year, and a lot of really bad things that were at the time potentially coming down the pipeline, that are coming down the pipeline now, that
live in the future,
that whipped people up into like a frenzy. But like, again, if you're gonna critique something, fine. If you don't like it, don't lie about it.
There's just nothing. Yeah, sorry. There's just nothing here.
And that's the problem. That's the big problem. And so, man, that's tough. It's really tough. But I think this thing deserves the praise that it has received. And, I'm not going to go as far as, I mean, it's obviously not my game of the year, but it's certainly one of the finest things that I played this year. And I really have nothing but good things to say about it. So, big fan.
It's one that I at some point would like to have finished, because I like this genre so much that I don't like that I haven't finished that one.
You're for you in particular that like craves challenge in these types of things. The latter part of this game gets tough, and there are some boss fights that, like, similar to what you were talking about with the Nine Souls final boss, like the final boss, like the true final boss in this game, it's like you just play perfectly, just in the same way that like Genichiro or some of these other, like, you have to learn every little bit of the boss fight or you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, and that's it's very enjoyable for a certain type of broken human, and that's me. I just love that shit.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that pain of just, you go into a boss fight, a fresh boss fight, and that motherfucker kills you so fast that you're like, it's actually impossible. It's no man can do this. And then about 20 minutes later, you're like, phase one's okay. And then you keep going, and man, it's just so satisfying. So satisfying.
Yeah. I also think that the story is pretty good in this game, like, albeit, like, I think it's a very interesting take on like one of the great novels in history, taking it and being like, okay, what would happen like at the end of this novel, right? And you don't really put that together until you get pretty deep into it. But once you realize that, you're like, okay, well, I don't really have any point of reference for the source material other than, like, I don't know, so many different fucking IPs like Dragon Ball, like pulling from Journey to the West. But
we're not ingrained in that story, so it's true. It's a little tough, and where I wouldn't. Like, the story did nothing for me, basically.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing there.
Yeah, it takes some time for it to ramp up. But by the end, I was like, this makes sense, and this is a cool thing that they did with it. And yeah, man.
What's compelling is that it was wildly successful. It's one of the highest selling games of the year, and that studio will move to another project and make something else. And absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah, hopefully it's not Black Myth Wukong 2. I'd like to see them do something else, but I'd also not be shocked if they do another Wukong just because of how popular this thing was. But yeah, I mean, gotta say that Chinese developers are coming up in a very significant way.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
We haven't seen historically, so that's cool. Make more good games.
Yep. Was that your number 3?
That's my number 3.
All right, my number 3. This was a pretty easy one. Right away, I knew it had to be high, and it's Frostpunk 2. Because to start is, I played the original Frostpunk and loved it, and when they announced Frostpunk 2, I was like, I'm on board. I don't understand why I need a sequel. Like, I don't understand what you're going to bring to the table and what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the reason it's so successful is that they were not afraid to pretty drastically change pretty key mechanics from the first one to create a product that stands on its own, and that you can still like both, and you could still say, I feel like playing this one or this one, and they are different things. They have not created a, hey, you'll never go back to Frostpunk 1, because of how many changes they made and how the city works and how the different factions work within the game. Like, it's really impressive. Like the first one only had like how your people felt about you, and this one introduced like 3 different factions or 4 that are all like vying for different things, and you're trying to keep everyone happy and keep the peace. And I really like these types of strategy, turn-based, not turn, but like you can stop progress in the game. And I think they killed it. I think it's they've got such a unique idea. Like they struck gold with just like a creative idea of just the core mechanics of like everything's frozen and you're always trying to keep people warm. And then by building on this management of the population, I'm super into it. I mean, I played through that game. I immediately restarted, and then I played 80% of that game again through the campaign. And there's a lot of other things you can still do. There's like endless mode and things. Like I really think it's a full package. I think it's a little upsetting because I don't think it critically did well enough. I think they've had some layoffs. They've canceled some other projects, which is a huge bummer for me because I like what they do. I would say again, I wouldn't want a Frostpunk 3, but they proved me wrong once, so maybe they could prove me wrong again. But I would like to say, what other ideas do you have? Because the genre in many ways is stale, and they showed up and are like, well, here's a really unique idea, and that's just like, yeah, what else you got? Let's keep going with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I did not touch it.
Yeah,
I said that I was going to, and then I didn't.
It's absolutely not your style of game. It's the type of game where like you could probably understand like, yeah, it's well made and things like that, but like it doesn't seem like the type of game that you would ever be over the moon for.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't say that because I didn't give it a fair shake. There's just more things to play in the year that pulled me in different directions. So, but obviously high on your list, so it's doing something right.
Yeah, it's just I love that genre so much, and there's just not a lot out that comes out into that type of. It's not even really. I mean, it's a strategy game, but it's a very unique one. There's no competitive in it, but yeah, that thing was awesome. I hope that studio, they just canceled a title. I don't know what that means, so I hope that they can at least make another something, and I will be eager to play whatever that is.
Cool.
Number 2? Are you on 2?
I'm on 2.
Oh my god.
It's Metaphor. Metaphor ReFantazio.
I had a feeling that was a lot lower for me, but they with just a huge asterisk next to it. And the reason is just that I just didn't play enough of it. Period. Yeah. That is the reason. It's my style of game, and I figured this would be very high on your list.
Yeah, love this thing. Played the shit out of it. 110 hours, something like that, for a completion on this for me. Maxed out everything, which was really satisfying because that's one of my bigger criticisms. Going back to what we were talking about with Persona 3. So the fact that I was able to get everything done and then had time to spare was really satisfying to me without following a guide. But yeah, I think outside of that, it does a lot of things differently, or I should say elevates things that we've come to kind of expect with the Persona formula, right? And I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, and I think is heads and tails better than what is done in Persona, is the class system, essentially, right? Your stands, more or less, being able to
well, it's completely opposite. You're no longer recruiting your Persona monsters. You are building your character with a typical skill tree and class, a job system, right?
Like, yeah, it's a job system, but it's also like the thing that made it more compelling for me was it wasn't just specific to the main character, right? Like for sure. Your full party had the ability to do any of the jobs that were in the game, set aside like one, right, that you get later in the game, which is only unique to the protagonist. But yeah, I just really enjoyed that kind of mix up. I mean, it feels very similar in a lot of ways to the Persona series, but is unique and distinct enough that it doesn't feel like a carbon copy, right? And so from that perspective, I really liked it. I enjoyed the high fantasy setting of this thing, and the story here is good, man. Like it's really good. The characters all are well written, well voice acted, and they all are kind of coming in with their own kind of problems and situations that you know are going to directly affect and interact with whatever's going on with them. Yeah, I mean, it's still got that combat system that is tried and true and fantastic. Yeah, I fell in love with this thing, and put a ton of time into it, and just really have nothing but good things to say about it.
I like the idea of the social link and general way of dungeons, how personas work. I like the idea of that becoming a genre and not just a persona thing. So it allows them to be a little more creative in just how that plays. Kind of like how people make like a Souls-like, right?
Yeah,
I like the idea of having this social link dungeon day calendar system, but not having to recruit Jack Frost.
I mean,
like opening it up and
Trails of Cold Steel did that, right, to a certain extent, where it was like they took the formula of Persona and did their own thing with it. So there are some examples of people kind of pulling from this, but yeah, I mean, these dudes are really good at making these fucking games, and if anything, it just gets me more excited for whatever Persona 6 is going to be,
which I think we'll hear about before the end of 2025.
Hopefully,
something.
Yeah, hopefully. For sure. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of any like negatives. I mean, this is why it's so close. I mean,
you can't date anybody.
Yeah.
No dating.
I'm all right with that. I'm all right. If it's there, I'm going to fuck everyone like we talked about with Dragon Age. But also like, I don't care. I don't care. I would have liked to fuck Heisme though.
Okay.
Which is the little Batman. Did you get Heisme?
I don't think so.
Okay, he's a little man that is quite literally, he's like a bat that is a fencer.
Okay.
I would have fucked the shit out of him. But outside of that, like, I didn't really want to fuck anybody else.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the story is kind of weird at first, and it takes some time to kind of build and get to a point where you're like, oh, I mean, it is very anime centric and
it's very unique.
JRPG tropes here for sure. But, you know, once you get to like the latter parts of the story, there's some pretty acceptable explanations to what is going on, and it goes places. Maybe not to the level of like a Dragon Quest or anything like that. But there are some like hooks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Holy shit moments here that I didn't quite expect. So yeah, in its totality, I mean, I would be lying if I said that my 1 and 2 was like really hard fought after. It was not. Like it was I mean, like immediate, like I knew what my number 1 game was, and it's been that way the whole year. But so number 2 is not a close second. Like it's a pretty far second. But I do think this game is fantastic, and I think everyone that is interested in this should play it.
Yeah. It's probably one that I have to finish eventually at some point.
You got to finish it. It's fantastic, and I think you will appreciate, especially because you played Persona 3 this year. I think that you will really appreciate like some of the flexibility that the game provides in comparison to what's on offer in Persona. I think that's why it's so compelling to me.
I will say I did load it up about a week ago, and it was a little hard to even step back into because I'd stepped away.
Yeah.
And so it will for sure, I can't imagine it'll take that long, but I was like, where am I at? What am I like? It was a little daunting.
The only knock that I'll highlight for this thing is the soundtrack. While the battle music is pretty badass, and at the Game Awards in particular, they had like a symphonic orchestra play through like the Game of the Year contenders.
It's not Persona.
But it's the same composer, right? And so clearly, like, and this is high fantasy, and there are some bangers here. But like when you compare it, I think Persona 5 is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time.
It's great, fantastic.
I think it's like his masterpiece. This is not on the same level of some of the stuff that he did with the Persona series, but it's It's good. And listening to the monks chant at the Game Awards, like, you know, the main battle theme, the way that they did that at the Game Awards, like goosebumps, dude. I was like, fuck yes, this is so badass. And that was a great idea that Keeley had. It probably wasn't Keeley because he's a dipshit, but he's not a dipshit. He's a very competent, capable individual. I just don't like him. But yeah, they had like just like a montage, like it all blended together where they played key music from all of the Game of the Year contenders. Balatro as well. That was like a really cool moment where they played the Balatro music, because that shit, that music is like it gets old after a while, but it's good.
It burns into your brain, which leads me to
number 2.
My number 2, which is Balatro. And which is a little surprising because, you know, this is a pretty simple game.
Is it? I don't think it is.
I don't know what the wording here is.
Like it's incredibly complex.
Low budget, like I guess.
Easy to pick up, hard to master.
It's a very, very indie game. And it's a game that I immediately gravitated towards, and my wife frequently she's like, "You just play poker games now," and I'm just like, "You don't fucking this is not just poker. This is."
Nick's just playing an emulator of Caesar Palace on the fucking PlayStation 1,
basically. But this has come out of like nowhere for me, like, and it has surpassed like even a Vampire Survivors as far as how strongly it hooked me. I think I played 60 hours of it or something like that, and it's unlimited. There's no reason for me to ever stop, at least for the foreseeable future, because it's not just that the game mechanics are a lot of fun. It's that there's enough challenges with the different decks that you can play. It's not a 100-hour game. I mean, it's probably 400 or 500 hours to actually do everything with every deck and get everything unlocked. And the core mechanic is so good and so satisfying. It's absolutely got that one more feel. It was frequently that I would start playing it at 8 and I'd be in bed or something, and then it would be 11 or 12 because you just can't for me, I can't fucking stop. And you're just in the middle of a run. You're like, well, how long could one more run take? An hour? Like, fucking, let's do it immediately. And I think it deserves to be here for me. Like, I played so much of it, and it really just rounds out how unique the year is. Like, my top 5, like, every game's a different genre. And it's pretty interesting that I'm able to do that with games that I can argue pretty strongly for across the board. And you're like, these things are all super fucking compelling, and they all come in at different price points. And it's just a great time to love all video games, like every genre out there, because like you look at this year and you're just like, well, what the fuck do you like? Because like I got something for you. Tell me your genre. I got it. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's awesome.
It is true. Very, very true. In regards to Balatro in particular, I really like Balatro as well. I think this is my girlfriend's game of the year.
Is it the only game she played this year?
Yes, outside of like Mario Party, the new Mario Party, which that game sucks, by the way.
They all suck.
I don't like Mario Party, but I bought it for my nephew and we've had fun. Yeah, no, I really like Balatro. I think it's super compelling. The dude that made it is in the same category as the dude that made Vampire Survivors, where you're just, here's barrels, buckets of money. Enjoy being a millionaire, and let's see what you can do in the future, right? I love the love that he has for other indie titles, and as the game has kind of been out in the wild, he has just constantly put out updates that are just like kind of love letters to other indie titles, which I think is really cool. My only hang up on it, I love poker, Hold'em specifically, and blackjack, but Hold'em is my favorite card game, traditional card game. That's the only thing that I would say that, you know, held this game back for me, is like, if I'm going to do like a deck builder like this, I want
enemy.
Enemy?
Enemy.
No, not necessarily an enemy. I just want like a unique deck of cards. Like, I want more Magic than like a standard, traditional deck of cards. And I know that that's the beauty of this game and why it's so brilliant is because he takes a traditional deck of cards and then just fucking makes crazy modifiers and crazy things happen. So, in all intents and purposes, it plays very similarly to a lot of like games like Slay the Spire or Monster
For
Train.
But
There's
a lot of different paths you can go down.
Yeah, but for me, I want more Slay the Spire, which we're getting. We're getting another Slay the Spire, which is
cool.
sweet. But that's more up my alley, and that just comes from my kind of experience with Magic the Gathering and really enjoying that. And so for me, that's the only thing that kind of held it back for me.
My biggest complaint for the thing is they've now released it onto phones, and it's probably going to be everywhere. It can probably be everywhere. That's easy enough. But I am all about cross save, and if you don't have cross progression, cross save, and this applies to Sony first party, shit drives me fucking crazy. I will buy it twice. You want me to buy it twice? Just let me play on both platforms. It's infuriating because there's no scenario like I would have that game on my phone. Absolutely. I'm already 60 hours in. I'm not going to start over fresh. There's no way. And just give me that cross progression, and then I would be on board.
Yeah, I understand the criticism, but also like
He's small.
It makes sense.
Sony has no excuse to figure it out.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like in the same way that the Vampire Survivors guy, like I think he showed his face like once in a documentary.
Yeah.
This guy's very like behind the scenes. He won a couple of awards at the Game Awards and had people from the publishing company accept their awards for him. So like kind of Yoko Taro-esque vibes there. But yeah, I mean, just a fucking just like out of nowhere became this massive thing, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here for sure.
I would think that they would keep iterating, keep expanding on it for a number of years before presumably doing anything new. Or I don't even know what that means. Like I don't even know if that is even what you want. You're like I can't wait for the guy that made Balatro to make a new. I guess. But like
I don't know. I mean that's really going to boil down to like how skilled he is, right? Clearly,
make
very
checkers crazy.
How about Connect Four?
Like what are we doing?
What about Hungry Hippos? What can we do with this?
It's all like I don't know, figure it out.
I'm a big fan of Hungry Hippos, by the way. Does your daughter have Hungry Hippos?
No, but I had it growing up. She just got a light bright though.
Oh yeah.
And she liked it so much that she turned to my sister, who gave it to her as an early Christmas present. And my daughter said, "You usually give okay gifts, but this is a great gift," which is such a fucking backhanded compliment.
This is a great gift.
Like usually you're subpar, but today you've hit it out of the park, and you're
That's
like, "I'm great. I did well today." But what was about all that old stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
She's very honest.
That's very funny. Well, all kids are very honest. Yeah, you got to get her the Hungry Hippos. That's a good time.
That's true. It's not Christmas yet. I'll fucking go to Target tomorrow and work it out. It's got to be there, right?
Absolutely. Or you just go on Amazon. You find it pretty easily, I'm sure.
Are we to your number? Where we are? It's your number one.
My number one game for 2024.
I gotta know it.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. No, I'm joking. I'm completely joking. However, a little sidebar here. We're probably not gonna be recording for the next little bit. I will definitely be talking about Indiana Jones. I am almost done with it. That game is fantastic, and it was hard for me to keep it off of this list. It's that good. Really high on that thing. So
I've been dragging my feet. I don't like, or I'm not a enthusiast of the Indiana Jones IP, but I am an enthusiast of machine games.
Yeah,
and then on top of that, I've seen like little snippets, and it's just like, this is like Indiana Jones Dishonored, and I'm like, fuck. I love Dishonored.
That's pretty accurate.
So I know that I have to play it at some point.
It's like Dishonored with an open world.
Yeah, and that's like good Lord, that's a problem because I really fucking like Dishonored. So.
I don't like Dishonored. And I love this. I love Indiana Jones. I think it's a fantastic game. But my real true game of the year for 2024 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yep.
This thing blew my fucking world. Blew my socks off, man. Like I could not. Like every single thing about this game, over and over again, it just impressed me. It impressed me from the perspective of the first game, which I think is good. When we're talking about the remakes, obviously,
Yep.
I think I think the first game is quite good. This thing is like heads and tails better, and in pretty much every single way. From the scale, the size, the scope. You get some like really giant, beefy, open areas to explore, and they're large and pretty well detailed. There's lots of secrets to find. And it just rewards exploration in some pretty compelling ways. And then, following a pretty, not pretty, like absolutely beloved story, but also, just seeing it in the modern way that video games are now is just mind blowing to me. It blew my mind. And I don't know. I think the writing is really good. I think the voice acting is really good. The game is gorgeous. I played it before the PS5 Pro came out, and even on the PS5, I thought that the game ran pretty well and was gorgeous. And I'm sure that it looks even better on the upscaled hardware.
It's just that frame rate increase that's nice.
Yeah.
It looked gorgeous before. It looks gorgeous now. The frame rate's nice to have that boost.
Yeah, no, it is exceptional in my opinion in pretty much every single way. The only knock that I would highlight is like some weak side quests, but they're few and far between. Most of the side quests are really good. And I think the thing that really elevates it for me is just the amount of content that is here. There's a lot of things to occupy your time. I think that Queen's Blood in particular is one of the coolest side card games that exists. It's up there with Gwent.
Queen's Blood potentially should have been a separate entry into the list of our top 10 because it wouldn't not be considered. Like Queen's Blood is a lot of fun. It reminded me of the game in Final Fantasy VIII, Triple Triad.
Yeah.
And it's great. I really like when they do that type of thing. That game is a lot of fun. It's really cool to see those characters again just realized. My really only complaint is I actually don't like the open world very much. I'm pretty neutral, and I'm 60 hours in, so I don't think anything changes. But like the open world, I think I'm pretty confident saying that the open world didn't hit it for me.
It did for me, absolutely. I loved it. I thought it was gorgeous, and it's the reason why I think it's so compelling is that it's nostalgia based for sure, but like I have nostalgia for the original game. I played the shit out of that thing when I was a kid. And in the same way that the first game, like we talked about seeing the plate in Midgar and like that fully realized when you look up and you're like, holy shit, like this is all fully realized. And this is what I thought it might be like when I was a kid. It's the same thing here where you're interacting with, Wutai in this game. And it's like, holy fuck, dude. Yep. Like this shit is insane. Like this just blows my mind that they fully realized all these things that I loved as a child.
I think at the end of the day, Ollie will absolutely be in the minority. And at the end of the day, I will probably say that I prefer the on rails, more directed story because I absolutely love the story beats of the first one and the second one from where I played through. And then once it opened up, I immediately was like, I want more just handcrafted, like immediately take my hand through it. And I fully understand that that's not probably the popular opinion on that.
No, definitely not. I definitely not. No, I'm not. I'm not on the same page with you there. I think that it's super effective in the way that it's executed, and yeah, man, just the amount of side content that's here, you can get lost, dude. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Oh, it's an enormous amount.
Mhm.
Every time you get to a new area, and fucking Chadley, which is. You thought the Chads you knew in your life were bad. Wait until you meet Chadley, but like fucking like there's a enormous because you can immediately see like how much shit you have to do in the area to like max his little science project out. And
Yeah.
shit, and you're just like, oh, and a little bit of my heart sinks. I'm just like, I'm gonna be here a while because
Yeah.
my brain's broken. Like I believe yours is, where I have to check all those boxes. I
Yeah.
have to do every single thing before I move on, and
Chadley sucks. He's not great. He is very annoying. I guess that's a knock as well. Chadley requires you to do a lot of shit that I'm just like, God damn it, Chadley! Like this is annoying.
I wonder how. I was just gonna say like they usually have a character kind of like him, and I just wonder like why they do this stuff. Like Xenoblade does it too. Like right, like you'll have like a random character where it's just like this character's insufferable. We decided that he's a pretty big portion of the game, and you're just like, all right,
Yeah.
thanks. But
Well, and it's compounded here because if you're playing on if you've got your microphone turned on your PlayStation, he just comes through and he'd be like,
controller.
"Hey, you
And
want to
it's
fucking
like
go and kill
fucking-
this turtle over here?" And then it's the girl as well in this game. It's not just Chadley. There's the chick as well that will chime in, and you're just like, "Shut up, shut the fuck up."
Yep.
Like I'm just exploring the open world here and hanging out, but yeah,
it's a pretty light critique. I mean,
It
I will
is.
bitch about it a lot, but it's a pretty light criticism.
It didn't detract from my enjoyment of this
Yeah,
game
yeah.
very much. The combat here is just as it's better. It's better than the first game, expanded upon, and is like I think they tried really hard with Final Fantasy 15. And I'm higher on Final Fantasy 15 than a lot of people are. It has its problems, and I will concede that. But I thought the combat in 15 was good. And I think that what they did with this is kind of like an evolution of what they did with 15. There are some key differences, but they play similarly in a lot of ways. But I think that they just expanded off of what they did in the first game and just made it better across the board. You get really get to sink your teeth into new characters in this game that were really not. I mean, Red 13 in particular, which he at first you're like, this character kind of sucks, but he's got some really effective application. But they do have a problem where Yuffie is still like maybe the best character to play in the game.
Yeah, she's an auto lock.
But auto lock, but also the character I played more than any other character in this game is Barrett. I fucking use
funny.
Barrett a lot. He's really good. He's not the most like flashy fun character, but he is so important in the way that I played this game that I used him as much as I possibly could. And then, you know, they're taking it in a new direction. Like the wheels have come off, and that is evident. I won't spoil this one.
I wouldn't
will
want
not
you to spoil
spoil
it because that I have like there's no scenario where I don't finish this game because they'll make the third.
Yeah, I
Like,
won't spoil this
I
one.
have to because I really like what they're doing with the narrative. I like that they didn't just do a straight remake. I just like they're actually
drastic differences.
making. I mean, yeah, if you've played it, it's very clear.
Drastic fucking differences towards the end of this game that are setting up for whatever they're going to do with the next one. I am so excited,
sure.
and it is a very smart move where you're tugging on those nostalgia strings, but you're also creating something that is fresh and new.
Something that probably doesn't end with the next game. I think I'd be really surprised if when they get to the end of this, it's the end of Final Fantasy VII remakes. I'd be shocked.
Just keep Zach as far away as possible because that
Sure.
character sucks. That's an unpopular opinion, but I think he sucks quite a bit. Love this game. Love this thing. I think I said that it was one of the best games that I played ever when we talked about
Yep,
it.
you did.
I feel like that still rings true. It's one of my favorite games that I've played for sure. It would definitely be in like my top 10.
Nice. My number one's a layup. It's an underhand. It's a there's Elden Ring is my number one game. I mean, we did games of the years last year, and I fought for Elden Ring to be the number one. And it's no surprise that a DLC that was 40 or 50 hours, which I don't know if we need different names for these types of products, because like not all DLCs are what From Software has done with like Shadow of the Erdtree, right? Like it's a game. If you tell me it's 40 hours, that's a game. Like, and it was absolutely incredible. It was more of Elden Ring, but when you are like, I was hungry for more, and I was able to play through it and really just absolutely love the boss fights, love the new environment, loved how they layered it on to really create a package that right now you can go to someone that's never played that product and be like, well, this is like one of the best things ever. And it's going to take you 150 hours or something to fully play through it. Those guys are the best. And I just don't, it's kind of hard imagining. Well, I was going to say a scenario where they release a game that's not game of the year, but Armored Core was that. But at least a Souls like, because I love this style so much, and I just crave more of what like Miyazaki's able to do. And I don't know about the next one that they announced at the Game Awards, but I will play everything that they release and then see. I think that this thing is obviously drastically different, which is fun. Like, you want to try some new things, and maybe that helps you come up with some other ideas going forward, knock yourself out. What is that called? Night Rain?
Night Rain, yeah.
But overall, it's not particularly close. Like, when I looked at the list, I was like, there's really no scenario where that's not my number one. It's absolutely the most important game that I played this year by a mile.
Yeah, I didn't play it.
You fucker.
And
You
I'm probably not gonna. All of that's valid. Like, I don't disagree with you, but I was not craving more Elden Ring. I put like 130 hours into Elden Ring, and I was like, I'm good. You know, that's not to say that I don't think Elden Ring is one of the best things that exists. Like, end stop. But I don't need more of that. I think you know, the way that I am, I want different and new things. And I understand putting out a DLC. It makes sense. And I'm happy that this one is like maybe one of the most robust DLCs that maybe exists.
There's just a lot there.
Right.
It's really, and it's got some pretty smart ideas on how they worked it into the main story, because it's not at the end.
Right.
You can actually get to it halfway through, and there is a upgrade system built in within the game where those extra stats only apply to the DLC, and it's all just kind of really smart to where at the end of the day you can just show up blind, replay Elden Ring seamlessly, and just experience all the content, and really you get yourself quite a product, like maybe the best product.
I don't know. I can't do it. I just don't. The only time I'm going to play a DLC is if I play the game after it comes out and the DLC is already present. And then I'll play the shit out of it. But going back to a game that it's like putting shit back in your ass. Like I've already went there, done that. I don't want to go back. And I've always been that way for the most part, with some notable exceptions. So I don't see myself going back to this.
Like, technically, Intergrade is DLC, right? Like, that's basically DLC.
Intergrade.
Final Fantasy VII with Yuffie.
Yeah, I played that.
I know.
That is DLC.
I'm trying to call you out. Like, that's essentially DLC, right?
Well, it's not essentially DLC. It is DLC.
Yeah.
I said notable exceptions. The other notable exception is I played Blood and Wine for The Witcher.
Got it. But you played that when it had already come out.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, because I think this goes way back, but I borrowed Witcher 2 from you And then I immediately played Witcher 3, and then I believe you did not play it day and date, and then you played it later.
Yeah, I'm not saying I've never played a DLC before. I don't think I played any DLC this year. I don't know why I have this like.
It's something in your brain that's just like, no, I didn't do it. I think I pretty much get it because I can understand where it's like, I don't want to go back. I think that there should probably be some exceptions, but I don't necessarily hold fault to playing through a game like Elden Ring that's that many hours. There's no doubt if you played it, you would enjoy it. I already know that. Like, you like these types of games, but I think I understand where it's like, I played that 120 hours, I'm done.
Yeah. That's what it is.
That's fair.
Show me what else you got. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, we don't, and like, yes, you're right. If I get back into it, the problem is it's like with the podcast and everything that we do, we really don't have a lot of time to carve out. Like, you have to commit to it, and
it gets difficult if you don't do it when the other person does it.
Right.
A little bit.
And so it's just like, no, there's other games, and it's like, I loved everything about Elden Ring. Pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, it just lives in my mind as that experience, and I don't need to go back to it. Like, I have no desire. I'm not that kind of gamer. I want new experiences. So it's just like, I'll wait until the next thing that you do, which I'm absolutely going to play Night Rain, even though they're using, a lot of reused assets, and then they're implementing Souls bosses into it, which is fucking crazy.
But they're also, I mean, I've heard people talk about Sekiro-like mechanics within it. I've just seen a lot of things thrown out there where I'm just like, well, obviously I've got to try it.
I'll definitely try it.
What this thing is.
It's multiplayer centric, which works for us. But my only critique of it is like just reading about some of the stuff that's happening with it, as they're like leaning on battle royale mechanics, and like, I think that it's not like you're going to be running around picking up loot, but there's like a tornado or something in the middle, and the map shortens or gets smaller. And I don't love battle royales. Well, I don't like them at all. So I think we'll have to see how it shakes out. But like, on
paper, I'm not particularly interested.
Yeah.
Like when I look at what it is, I'm just like, it's not necessarily what I want, but prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And let's see what you got, right?
Yeah, Miyazaki's also not involved at all. So that means he's working on something else.
Which is good.
Or Miyazaki might be at the point where it's just like, I am now the president of From Software, and I have so much, and with the celebrity and the prestige of the studio now, there's probably a lot going on where he doesn't necessarily have time to be involved in every project that's coming out. I would assume like the mainline things that come out he's going to be involved with. But one of the dudes that works at the studio pitched it to him and gave him like a proof of concept, and he said, go and do it. So like, that's his involvement in it. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, we will see. But we did it. We went through almost 20 games, probably 16, 15.
I feel pretty strongly about this list. It was a pretty good list on both sides.
I think between the
except
two,
for Nine Souls.
I think between the two of us, I think it's a list that spans a lot of genres, and it would be hard for really anybody to show up that plays games to not be able to find something that they gravitate towards. And I think that that's kind of a pretty cool thing. Like, when I looked at my list, I was like, this is awesome. This is a wide variety of things, and hopefully we get more years like this. I'm not optimistic because I feel like this was a little special, but
2025 is shaping up to be pretty damn good, man.
We've got some if things don't get delayed, we'll see. It might be really special.
Here's spoilers. Game of the Year 2025, Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yeah, that's prove us wrong. That's going to be
a hard one to beat.
It absolutely will be, but there is literally a GTA game that comes out that year, so it should be a fun discussion. That's going to do it. That is the 2024 Christmas special.
Game of the Year special.
Is the Christmas, is the Hanukkah, is the 2024 holiday special. All inclusive around here. But hey, you should come and join the Discord. Look in the show notes. There should be a link there. If you're on YouTube watching us on video, our bio should have a link there. That is going to do it. We will see you in the new year. Thank you.